very good morning to you. Welcome to our brand new week. This is another episode of K24 This Morning. My name is Shiko Kaitani.
And my name is Mungana Mbuvi. Karibu tena sana. We're still battling with a cold here. Actually, my guys in the audio section wanted to give me a boom this morning because
you know, I don't know, is it still a flu if you have it for 3 weeks?
I have it.
I don't know. I'm just asking because you're the one who's done biochemistry. You've understood pathogens.
Yes.
If a normal flu goes like for 7 days, right?
Yeah.
If you've done that, if you've tripled that timeline, do you really have a flu movie?
Dude, it started on Tuesday. Today is Monday.
Which Tuesday? That's the question. 2 Tuesdays ago.
No, it's...
You know, I don't know. I'm just saying there's something else here.
An
it is
indicator.
not a flu.
Watch it in a minute, please.
My name is Jeff Mote. Welcome to the show as well as we try and figure out what he's suffering from, which is not a flu. We've got so much in store for you this Monday. As always, I'll be starting off the newspaper review. KCSE kicks off today. We'll be taking a look at what's happening in Mvita. I'm told Education PS Belio Kipsang is already there, opening the containers. We'll be keeping a keen eye right across the country as day one kicks off as far as the KCSE examination is concerned. But also, Kibra final campaigns done over the weekend, and what a way it was. Lots of alliances formed and big questions being asked as to what really this means, not even for the by-election, but politics in general moving forward. We discussed that, of course, on the show. I'm joined by governance expert Ben Mulwa, who is here. He said from the last time, he was given the alarm clock back, and you can see first one in. And of course, we'll be jumping the big stories of the day. Morning, Ben. Good, very well, Karibu sana.
Asante sana.
Good, looking at that, of course, because it makes the front page of most of the dailies this morning, and plenty more on the show as well.
Okay, Sasa. And of course, right after the newspaper review, what do we have? Movie?
Interactive trending stories for the last 24 hours.
Right.
Fantastic.
Today we get up close and personal, by the way, with Governor Laikipia and Rito Muriithi, of course,
Nice.
talk about what he's been doing. Started off as a young man, became an economist, traveled, worked overseas, came back, got into politics, and he's been there ever since.
Nice.
What's been driving him and what's his next move as far as his public service record is concerned? We'll have that as we get up close and personal with the governor.
Okay, all right. Such an interesting, discussion coming your way. Of course, if you actually want to know a little bit more about the governor, keep it K24. But that being said, from 8 to 9, we jump into our social hour. And of course, it's going to be about our health and our wellness. And this time around, we are talking about dental care and health. Talking a little bit how to improve your oral hygiene habits. And of course, the importance of not missing out those annual checkups. And so let's talk about how we can actually achieve a brighter and whiter smile with the Royal Smiles Clinic, who will be coming to studio today.
Okay, especially on that point of annual checkups. I know very many Kenyans who are like, if I don't have a cavity, if there's no pain in my mouth, I am not going to that dentist.
Can you believe it? Daktari actually told me that there are people who are adults who've never been to the dentist.
Wow.
Like, you passed 19 and you have never visited the dentist, and you're 40.
Okay, we'll be talking about that, of course, and plenty more right here. This is where you say a big good morning to us as well and let us know how your weekend is, where you're waking up from. We'll start off with your traffic update right here, and then right after that, get into your newspaper review. Good morning.
As always, we love to monitor those major routes for you every single day right here on K24 This Morning. But I always like to say we cannot do this alone. We need you to be our eyes and our ears on the roads. Tell us what things are looking like from your end of town. Sawa. And of course, you can go ahead and get in touch with us through our social media platforms at K24TV on Instagram, Facebook, but preferably on Twitter. Send us a tweet pic if you can. So let's take a look at one major route that we cannot leave out every morning right here on our traffic watch, and that is Wayaki Way. We always like to start things off from like a central point, and that is Museum, and this is the overpass right here, as you can see. So let's try and back things up all the way to Mountain View just to see how things are actually looking for you. If you're coming from Limuru, coming from Doresho, of course, the Kangemi area, well, let's take a look at the roads. This being a couple of minutes past 6 a.m., not expecting much on the roads, but like Jeff always says, you never know. And so let's see what this is looking like for you on Wayaki Way. So far, so good. By the way, the green line indicating that the roads are absolutely clear. So this is a fantastic fantastic time to start heading out. Of course, if you do hail from this area, why don't you let us know what the roads are looking like as far as the construction is concerned? Have we made progress? Do we have at least fewer diversions and of course excavation points as far as Waiyaki Way is concerned, because we do know if you're coming from that stretch from Limuru coming down to of course Kianda School, you can expect a few of those diversions. So it's something that we definitely need to be on the lookout for, and of course to at least warn motorists about, because we have had quite a number of accidents and incidences happening on Waiyaki Way between that stretch of Limuru and of course Kangemi and Kianda. But here we are at the Sugarboard / Shell petrol station, and this is the Mountain View area. As you can see, here is the Soko at Kangemi, and we are going to pass Kianda School and make our way past Waroko / Deloitte. Here you've got Nairobi School, and this particular spot, which is the ABC, and of course James Gishuru Junction. Always something to highlight every morning, because as you do know, there is a little bit of traffic, a snarl up that actually does take place right around there. So of course right about now it is looking good, and that is fantastic. Good news for you. And here we are at St. Mark's, making our way past Westlands. As you can see, this is the old Westlands roundabout. And here we are at Chiromo. I hope that you can actually see that on your screen. And there you go. I've just blown that up a little bit so you can see what the museum overpass is looking like. This is fantastic. And so we're going to stop things there. But of course, we are going to continue to monitor those roads through our satellite feed. And so let us know how Mombasa Road is looking. Thika Road, good morning. How are things looking on your end? And of course, the likes of Langata Road. Okay, so that being said, let me hand over to Jeff, who will be taking us through the newspaper review.
Welcome back. This is K24 This Morning. It's time for your newspaper review, but also it is day one as far as the KCSE examinations are concerned. As per the norm, we saw what happened with the KCPE examinations. Even with the KCSE, we'll have different government leaders opening up different containers as far as they're concerned right across the country. So we'll have our eyes, of course, across the country to see how this pans out. Right now, we do have our cameras, of course, and our network of correspondents ready to go. We'll start off with Mombasa in Mvita, where Dr. Bello Kipsang, PS Basic Education, Ministry of Education, of course, is opening the container on that particular end. They have said that this is, of course, to make sure that the process is above board and everything goes as planned. PS Kipsang also promising to do impromptu checks right across that particular area. But let's see what's happening at that particular point in time. This is Mvita, where PS Kipsang is opening the container at that particular point right now.
English paper 1 this morning for the first time. We shall see it for the first time. And I would want to assure you, other than the little challenges that we had during the KCP because of rain and flooding, I know it affected your region very strongly, regional commissioner, mainly in Tana River and some places of Kwale. Our examination for KCP went on very successfully. And I would want to thank all our teams. I would want to thank the security officers. I would want to thank the teams from government, and urge my brothers and sisters at the secondary school level that a standard has been set by our colleagues in the primary school level, that we had extremely minimal cases of incidences, very minimal. I think it was less than 5 or 6 across the whole country. We could count them. Let's speak from there, because more is expected of us at this level. More is expected of us at this level. So let's even take the standard higher. But otherwise, I would want to thank our security forces, our officers, for the good work they did last week. You know, there were more centers. There were 28,000 centers. And we know the pressure that this put to us. This now, the secondary schools, we have only 10,000 centers. I think we can now focus on the 10,000 better, and we should be able to do a better job now with the 10,000. But once again, my colleagues, thank you for the good work we did last year. Let's give our best this year. Let's make our children competitive. And they have been very competitive. Go to any of the schools, either locally or internationally. They do very well. Let's not miss that opportunity for them. Let's make them be proud of who they are. And there is enough space out there. We have enough TTIs. We have our universities. We have enough spaces. We have enough opportunities for them to proceed to the next level. And as we wait for January, I urge all of us, in the government's 100% transition, let's prepare early for these young people. I know sometimes it can be overwhelming. We have 1,088,000 children to proceed to our secondary schools next year. We appreciate the challenges that we might be having in terms of required infrastructure. My colleagues in the Teacher Service Commission has been doing all that they can to make sure that we have teachers to take care of these children. We have 10,000 interns this year. We are recruiting 5,000 new teachers. We've continuously recruited replacements. I know the last one around 3,000. And we shall continue to do that so that we can prepare ourselves for January to ensure that we are able to take all our children who did KCP, because we must be able to sustain the President's focus on 100% transition. And this we shall continue to do, because each of our children must be given an equal opportunity into the future. And we can only give them an equal opportunity into the future by making sure that they have an opportunity to progress to the next level. So with those very many remarks, I say thank you. I would want to recall back the Commissioner and on one or two things, mainly on security and ensuring that I know the flooding is still, I'm told it rained slightly yesterday again in Tana River, but we can assure all of us that we are prepared and we are put in adequate facilities. So Commissioner and maybe the Director of Teacher Service Commission, one word, and then you can start.
And welcome back, of course. Those are sights and sounds from Vita, where PS Kipsang opening the container, of course, day one KCSE examinations kicking off. Government making sure that they'll work just as hard to make sure these examinations are above board as well. We'll be looking right across the country with our correspondents, making sure we see how things are as day one kicks off, as far as the KCSE examinations is concerned, right here on K24 television. But also, it's time for a newspaper review as well. Let's look at the front pages of the dailies first of all before we jump into my panel. Let's look at the front page of the PD. MPs draft new referendum law. Constitutional Implementation and Oversight Committee proposes law to establish legal framework to regulate plebiscite, though Building Bridges Initiative Task Force report is still pending. It's a big one right there, and of course, you can get that story in your copy of the PD. Also right there, you can see last campaigns as far as Kibra's by-election is concerned. The pictures telling 1,000 words, the rally is going on right there. You can get all the details on that as well. And also on the front page, it's all systems go as KCSE exams begin. National tests to be taken within 18 days in 10,287 centers, with last paper set for November the 27th. The details of that can be found right there in your copy of the People Daily this morning. We move on now to the Standard. The front page of the Standard, this man messed up a whole country. The A student whose maths did not add up. For 6 years, Henry Rotich never saw a loan he could say no to. The result is a broken people and a distressed economy. That's what the Standard is digging deep into and looking at what really happened in the Ministry of Finance. And the details can be found therein in your copy of the Standard this morning. Moving on to the Daily Nation, it's all about the battle royale as Ruto and Raila show their force. It's a display of political might in Kibra as by-election turns into a national contest right there. High stakes as result will have bearing on future duels between DP and Orange Boss. Waiguru in early campaigning for adoption of Building Bridges Initiative report. And Ukambani governors turn up for Raila in hotly contested by-election. Interesting turn of events right there. And we'll be talking about that, of course, as we look at our Daily Nation this morning. Front page of the Star, why DP, Ruto and Raila are desperate for Kibra win. Victory for Ruto will boost his marketability outside his traditional strongholds. The poll is drawing the battle lines in the Building Bridges initiative as well. That's how the Star is calling it right now. But also, let's take a look beyond our politics and take it to the international scope where our men and women do us so proud. Yesterday's New York City Marathon, Joyce Lynn Jepkosgei and Geoffrey Kamworor crossing the finish line right there, doing what they do best as far as Kenya is concerned. And this is what brings us all together. We forget that there's a referendum that might be looming. We forget the politics of the day, and we cheer our boys and girls, of course, every single time they do us proud. And a big congratulations to them, of course, on that particular feat. Front page of the Business Daily. Tough wars in government derail JKIA railway link. Treasury questions procurement of a French consortium picked by the Transport Ministry. The details of that can be found in your copy of the Business Daily this morning. We'll dig a bit deeper and see what all of this means. Also, as we keep a keen eye, of course, right across the country as the opening of containers takes place, right as the KCSE examination kicks off. My panel now fully in place. Good morning. The first one here, I was told I need to emphasize that. Mr. Ben Mulo, morning this morning.
Very good morning to
you.
How are you? I'm all right. Yourself?
Nerema Wako of Siasa, please. Good morning.
Good morning.
And a man who I think now will have to return the alarm clock to him.
Which this mythical alarm clock.
I'm returning it.
You're returning it to Mark today. Morning, Mark Michachi.
Good morning. How are you?
Very well. It's a pleasure you could make time for us this morning, gents and lady. Let's look at the front page of the People Daily, shall we? MPs draft new referendum law as the CIOC proposes law to establish legal framework to regulate plebiscite. The BBI report hasn't been tabled yet. Do they know something that we don't, Mark? When Ndaragwa MP Jeremiah Kioni has gone on to make sure we do this, is he doing this informed of what might have happened with all the talk? Or is there a referendum around the corner that we really don't know about?
Actually, the reason you need to have a referendum law is what Punguza Mzigo taught us. Because the entire system was caught flat-footed, and we're trying to catch up and find out, wait a minute, what does it mean to have verified signatures? Because if you look at Okot's case, all he had to do is say he had 1 million signatures, and we had to agree with him. Because Chebukati told us that he has no law that tells him how to verify a signature. So and if you look at those decisions between Okoa Kenya and Punguza Mzigo, then you realize that there's a very big loophole. So we've not had this law for some time. So do we need it? We need it like yesterday. Is there a referendum in the horizon based on BBI? I'd give it 70% no, 30% yes. And I'll tell you why 70% no. 70% no, because a lot of what the BBI report is going to report on does not need a constitutional review. And if Chapter 6 of our Constitution has taught us anything, writing that there is a national ethos and you need to have good character and stuff like that does not change our character. So it is not about a constitutional review. It is about relooking at how our societies are engineered. But this law is absolutely necessary.
Nerima, even as we wait for the BBI report, is it that this is making way and paving the way so that when the report does land, it'll have a clear highway to go through? If it's referendum, straight down, nothing to stop it happening?
That's speculation. It's also assumption. But also in our country, we've learned
where there's
that
smoke, there's fire.
yes. Where there's smoke, there is fire. Whether it will move on swiftly, I believe that it still goes back to political alignment and political goodwill. It will only work if majority are for it or not necessarily that it's for the benefit of the public. And that's where my concern is when we're considering how quickly such bills take. I know of bills that have sat for years and years and decades to come, and they don't see the light of day. And it's also because it's not political. But when it's something political, we see our legislators being very ambitious about it, making sure that passes. But at the end of the day, we also need to see, is it for the good of the public, or perhaps it's for the good of them?
Right. And even as it almost seems like they're intertwined, this bill that's being brought in the House in terms of the referenda and the BBI report as well. Let's talk about the BBI report for a bit, Ben, on this, because it should have been tabled quite a while back. It's because the president has been in and out. Do you think that is the issue, or is it the political temperature of the day that's making even the team find it hard just to bring it forth with the environment as is right now?
I am on record, actually, Jeff, indicating that the process or the framework through which the BBI was built up to how the conclusion of the process was done, remained opaque to very many key stakeholders. And
by this you mean from even the initial bringing in of the task force members?
Even in terms of the recruitment and the discharging, or actually tasking the task force, the members of the task force to embark on the assignment. And especially Parliament, plays a critical role in terms of either facilitating any agenda, especially coming from the national level, to be able to be understood by the populace. One of the key things you'll agree is even as BBI went around the country to seek views, many people even did not understand what that was all about. Unlike other cases whereby you have had, like the local area MCAs, the MPs are talking to the people, the people in the church are talking to the communities and those kinds of frameworks, because that helps to build inclusivity. Unfortunately, BBI remained very opaque to very many key people from the outset. So as it stands now, most of the people who are coming up with all these ideas to frustrate the implementation of the BBI are informed by the fact that they feel they were not adequately engaged to come up with what we have. As we are, nobody even knows what the report contains except maybe Paul Mwangi and the team, and they are yet to present to the president. But from the way, you know, if it walks like a duck and it moves and it quacks like a duck, there are chances that it is actually a duck. And I think that is what most of the members of parliament are reading. But now, particularly on this law, I think it is important we have regulation and legislation in place in terms of how we undertake a referendum. We cannot be a country whereby we are all full-time in the business of changing the constitution. I mean, it doesn't work. Even in the US, and it's one of the oldest democracies, it doesn't happen every day that somebody's coming up with an amendment. Right. Because what has been informing most of these activities is not anything that is long-term or anything that is based on the actual realities on the ground. It is a scenario whereby people trying to legislate or incorporate their feelings and their short-term objectives into national policy frameworks. That must be curtailed. And there's one proposal that has been doing rounds for a long time. If indeed I have very pressing issues that I feel we must address in the current constitution, why don't we put that in, do that alongside a general election? It makes sense, because during that time there is a sufficient budget for IEBC. IEBC is all over across the 44,000 polling stations. All Kenyans actually are set to participate in a poll. So that would work. But this idea of everybody coming up, as Mark is putting it, today we have Punguza Mzigo, tomorrow we have Ongeza Mzigo, the other week we are going to have Balansi Mzigo and those kinds of things. It is not going to work.
Okay, because of time, right before we go into our first commercial break, I want us to look at the front page of The Standard, because it pours in to other stories within the different dailies. This one seems like it might have just come from Ben Muller's mouth, because he has spoken about this so many times. Oh, yes. This man messed up a whole country. CS rotates right there. The A student whose maths didn't add up. For you, Ben, yes, no questions here. You still feel the buck stops at this particular doorstep?
It still hurts me, because when I started calling Henry Rotich an economic terrorist, people used to think and insist that I'm an enemy of development. But you see, economics is extremely simple. Like if you have a salary of 100,000 shillings a month, and you choose to live in an apartment that goes for 100,000 shillings, and you want to drive a car that consumes fuel, even if it is 500 shillings every day, and you still have to feed yourself, you have other utilities to cover, where are you going to get this other money from? That is basic economics that Rotich refused to explain to Kenyans.
And we'll be talking about that also.
He insisted on banding fancy figures that made no sense. Even he himself, by his training, having gone even to Harvard, he knew that what he was doing cannot work and can never work. Unfortunately, we stuck with him for a whole 6 years. It is going to take us nearly the next 60 years to recover from the mess that Rotich has sunk us into.
Nerima, some people might be saying, yes, he might be the face of the ministry, but by the time the budget became a document, it had gone through so many hands, so many technocrats might have crafted this to put it together. So when we look at him and say that he's the one who brought the country down, we're being a bit less than honest right there.
I don't think we're being less than honest. It's because it is within his docket, and he does have the opportunity or mandate to reject. And the fact that he hasn't, then it also means that we don't have leaders that can stand their ground and say, the direction that we're taking, it is wrong, and I can proudly say that I will step aside. Right. I think the only one that I remember was EACC,
Yes.
who said that what's happening within the department, I will not support, and I choose to step aside.
Right.
But we're not seeing that with Rotich. And even to see the headline, it's so worrying that in 6 years he's borrowed more than 14 of his predecessors combined.
Right.
And that's a concern, especially when we're talking about the youth bulge, we're talking about the demographic dividend, when we're talking about unemployment. You should be concerned about the amount of borrowing that you're doing, because how are you able to sustain that borrowing when you're not having enough employment for youth to be able to chip into the country's economy?
Right.
That's a concern.
And Mark, even as we go into the break, this is the face we see when you talk about borrowing and the debt situation that we have right now. But every single time, he should go before Parliament in order to get this approval. So are we skipping this arm whose duty it actually is to approve or reject and going for him? Should we be asking the legislator, why didn't you rein in that CS? Why didn't you say no when you should have said no?
Jeff, do we have an august house? Do we have a house that is deserving of that Monica August? No, we don't. That house has not delivered. That's just the truth. If you look at any KPI that you can give any parliament anywhere in the world, they've failed. But on top of that, let me tell you something. If I'm planning to steal from you and you ask me to do your budgets, I'm telling you, I will tell you to borrow and to buy as many things as you can so that I can steal. The truth of the matter is this: between Parliament and Treasury, allegedly, and I'm underscoring allegedly because the case has not ended, you cannot have the person in charge of budgeting being also a thief. It does not matter where he went to, because the rules of thieving are simple. The more things we budget for, the bigger monies we borrow, the more money there is to steal. That's the bottom line. And that's the kind of economics we were running in this country.
Let's take a break at that particular point in time. As he said, it is allegedly, as far as that's concerned. You take a short break, but we want your views on this particular story as well. You can tweet us at K24TV, 21222. The front page of the Standard right there. CS Rotich, the man who has messed up a whole country. What's your take on this particular one? Let's talk about that and more after the break.